Hey there, beautiful woman in the Wild Goddesses group, or wherever I'm going to repurpose this video. So I'm coming in with this topic that I was just reflecting on today because you might have seen that I am launching a new masterclass, and it is called Rampage, and it has a title that says the 3 erotic sophistications to explosive magnetism. And it really made me reflect on a couple of things, because why am I coming back with the sensuality? Because I know that a few years ago, if you have been with me a while, you will have known that I was always tooting about pleasure and orgasmic manifestation and all things sensual. And I kind of went quiet a little bit with my social media platform on this, because there were a few things in my being that didn't feel fully embodied, that didn't feel fully connected. And I've been raising the bar a lot these past few years on embodiment practices and stepping into leadership and liberation, but more from a place of, I don't need to toot it out. Like, I am this, right? I don't even need to talk about this. So I was, I guess, going into the journey of, just feeling, like actually really feeling the liberation, actually really feeling the sensual aspects of things. And I was really reflecting on this because I know that there's a lot of women who go through these periods as well. And what is really sometimes holding us back from going into full expression with our sovereign sensuality is that our good girl is coming in. And the good girl doesn't want to be loud. And I will be talking about this topic, and I really want you to bring a part of you online that is extremely mature, that can sit with conversations that are uncomfortable, because this conversation might make you feel uncomfortable if you've been trapped in the good girl syndrome. And I have definitely gone through waves of this. And of course, there's empowered ways to position ourselves online. But there's also aspects that are vulnerable. And I will be coming to you with a very vulnerable aspect as well. And I won't be maybe going as deep as I will be going into it in my masterclass tomorrow, because I really feel that there is already an energetic activation alone with this story. I don't even know how to handle, like, how to really go into this. But what I really want to say is that this good girl syndrome can come in the slyest and most subtle ways without us even noticing. And the way that the good girl syndrome hijacked me and my leadership and my business a few years ago was actually with the people pleasing. And so with that came a whole array of dysfunctional dynamics within myself. Although I feel that I've always held my clients in the highest light and in the most beautiful containers, it's an internal aspect, right? It's an internal thing that keeps us looping in unworthiness and keeps us looping in kindness, like over the top kindness, where we're actually overextending our energy, we're giving way too much. And it's, of course, it's great for our clients to receive the top of the top service. But I also feel that there is a synergy in the feminine dynamics where we have to stop this. We have to stop this overgiving and overcompensating and overstretching our energy, because there's a dynamic that moves forward and that, it's this masculine forward dynamic where we're doing things and we're providing and we're bringing things to the table. We're constantly doing and making sure that we are ticking all the check boxes that people are expecting of us, which are always in our mind, because very, very often people don't have these expectations, but we set these expectations onto ourselves. So the way that I was really doing this in business is I was setting the expectation that I had to be super groomed and super clean and super like on it, that I had to be in a perfect room to hold my calls, that I had to make sure that I'm in the right vibe so that I can hold space for my clients. How else did this show up? Where I was just, doing emails, but like going through them and like peeling and severing through my copy over and over and over until it was so, purified that there was basically no more of my actual essence, because I was actually writing copy in order to please my clients, in order to attract my clients. It was a dynamic of, yes, attempting to be as perfect and polished as possible. And this is very detrimental. It's detrimental to our life force energy, because our life force energy is raw, it's pure, it's sometimes a little wild and sometimes a little chaotic. And when we are constantly putting ourselves through a filter in order to come across as perfect, come across as the nice person, come across as, whatever it is that we feel we have to be in order to meet the expectations of the other person liking, accepting, and buying from us, it actually sooner or later starts to hijack our creative energy. And, and this was really sickering through. And I was feeling that, now looking back, that even the way that I was teaching about pleasure, even the way that I was talking about orgasms, even the way that I was, doing all of the programs and creating the containers was coming from a place of, I have to make sure this is really, really good, because I have to make sure that people will like this, that people will accept this, that people will come in for this. And yeah, sooner or later, actually, I ran out of creative flow. And it's not that I ran out of creative flow, but I ran out of the desire of creating. And what was very interesting is that at the same time, in parallel, I also experienced a phase in my life where I actually lost my desire for pleasure. Like, things were just a little dull, a little faded, a little numb. And it was devastating for me, because for a woman who had always been teaching, about pleasure and about the empowerment through pleasure, actually going through a phase in my life where I was actually disconnected from my physical, actual sensual pleasure, where I felt that, whether I was with a man or whether I was by myself, that I couldn't actually achieve this level of pleasure anymore that I used to access so easily, and that I would, was totally capable of teaching women how to become more receptive for pleasure and, and life force running through their bodies. And it was because I was even using all of this to create a sense of perfection, to create a sense of being someone, and having a projection of my image online to meet those standards and requirements. And so there was a bit of a disconnect, and definitely that good girl syndrome was not serving me. And I also feel that it was really holding me back from creating the programs that were really in alignment and, in the embodiment level. And so I moved away from teaching this, because I also felt that deep down, I didn't feel in integrity anymore, because if I'm not experiencing, high levels of pleasure and bliss and orgasmic states of being, then, teaching about this didn't feel good in my soul. And I'm happy I did that, because I really needed to go on an internal journey. with my pleasure. And what I'm really sensing and seeing now is, when clients come to me and, we're working together, and like the places where I'm going to see the good girl syndrome pop up is, when she's making deals, especially with sales, when she's, making a commitment that she's going to be raising her fees, and she keeps collapsing back down into, her previous fees. And of course, there are ways to navigate this, because you can collapse back into your fees out of a place of, I just want this to be easy. I want this to be effortless. I want this to be a no-brainer for my clients. And it actually feels really, really good. Or dropping and collapsing your prices because you feel that your clients are not going to be meeting you on that level. And I've gone through, I think from the A to Z of all of these feelings. I think I've gone through pretty much all of them. And one thing that I really can say is that it is definitely an internal journey here, because what we allow ourselves to claim and be bold and, make moves that move mountains, it takes a lot of courage, but it also takes a lot of awareness to see where this good girl syndrome is actually popping up and trying to, keep us safe. Because really that's what she wants. She wants to be safe. She wants to be safe. She doesn't want to be seen too much. She doesn't want to disturb. She doesn't want to stand out too much. Like, she will want to stand out just enough so that people will like her, but she doesn't want to stand out too much so that people will actually criticize her. And this is really where it's at. This is so important because it actually shuts off one of the wildest expressions that we have deep, deep, deep inside. And it's also what plugs us into our wisdom. Because our feminine wisdom isn't there to please others. Our feminine wisdom isn't there to conform. She isn't there to try to be someone. She's also not in a performance rush, and she's also not in a time rush. Our feminine is pretty wild and chaotic. And she works deeply in the unknown. And so when the feminine is being, secluded and having parts of herself that are being dissected, like, this part of me is acceptable, but this part of me is not. So let me just, shove it down or move away or push it into the background and put only the parts of me that I deem are pretty enough or good enough or beautiful enough or intelligent enough or worthy enough, right? I'm already creating a filter, and that filter is really what, it may not show up straight away, because in the beginning it actually feels good to have this super shiny brand and this super shiny image and this super shiny polished version of you. But sooner or later, what happened for me, and I can, definitely vouch for myself, and I can vouch for the clients that I work with, is that sooner or later, actually, we shut down so much of our own wild expression that we no longer dare to be fully authentic. We no longer dare to actually go out and be ourselves. We no longer dare to show up in the most raw, natural, purest form possible. And what this actually does is something that is so deeply detrimental for our businesses, is that it actually blocks things from coming to us, right? Because we're actually giving people a projection. And so when we give people a projection of ourselves that is also deeply filtered in a way that, we're thinking our way to that filter, it inhibits our true energy to emanate and to be seen and received by others. And what does this come back to? Well, it always flows back into lack of intimacy. Because if you're not showing who you really are, then the person is not really receiving you, right? And what it also does is it, this shiny, polished, perfect version of you is attracting a clientele that is also holding that kind of standard, or is putting you on such a pedestal that there's going to be such a gap that they won't be willing to actually do the work to rise up and meet you, right? Because this good girl syndrome in the back burners is actually creating an attraction of the good girl syndrome inside of your clients, right? Where your clients is going to play out the wounded child, play out the toxic dynamic of the child, right? Of, I don't know if this is right for me. I don't know what to do. Please help me. They need hand holding all the time. They need you to chase up on them. They need you to basically do everything for them. And you're actually going to be pushed into your mother role. And by doing so, you're also reflecting and pushing your clients into the child role. And so what this does is that, because, and this is a very deep and intimate share that I'm providing for you here, but what this really does is that it automatically creates a hierarchical dynamic in your business and in your field. And so it's almost like you have created this projection of this perfect person. So you're kind of like up here, right? And then you have your clients down here, and they're looking up at you and they're like, oh, she is so perfect. She is so amazing. I want that. So this, in the long term, hurts so deep, because what your clients are doing is that they are projecting things so much onto you that they actually believe themselves that they are not good enough, that they are unworthy. And so you're perpetuating a system without your intention, because your initial intention was probably the most loving, the most beautiful intention in the world. You wanted to do good. And this is why I said before, I want you to bring up this very mature version of yourself that can sit with an uncomfortable conversation, because it's not your fault. Your initial intention is coming from a place of, I want to do good in the world. I want to create a brand that is polished and, that is emanating the exact perfect, aligned way of how I am. But if you're coming at it from that place of distorted, feminine essence, where one part is deemed worthy and the other one isn't, so it has to be hidden in the background, what it really creates is this perpetuation of a hierarchical system that is actually damaging the planet right now. And I feel that a lot of us actually, and this is, I'm going deeper, like even deeper into the rabbit hole, I should have warned you. But what this really does is that we're actually just playing out and reflecting what is happening in the collective consciousness of business for hundreds and thousands of years, so that we can actually ultimately release it. And this is why I also believe that women are going to definitely be the leaders of the new earth, because we have never accessed levels of business before the way that we access them now. We have never accessed levels of freedom and liberation the way that we have accessed them now. This is historically. We don't even need to go, very deep into history to figure this out. I mean, usually it's enough to just look at your generation and the generation before you. That is enough to show you the huge gap that there has been in the collective consciousness when it comes to business. And so when you're really looking at this gap, between you and your mother, or you and your grandmother, the privilege and access of information and education that you have is actually unprecedented. There hasn't been women on the planet with access to such levels of education than we have now, to such access of liberation than we have now, to such access of doing things that were normally only open to a masculine human being, right? And I feel that what really is happening is that we are being pushed into the roles that women were playing for hundreds and thousands of years, right? These projections on what it means to be a woman in the world. And this is not that we are doing it because we're, somewhat not intelligent enough or we cannot see through it. We are doing it so that we can see that it's not working for us, so that we can heal that part. And when we heal that part and we integrate that part and we integrate the power that comes from that pain and that suffering and that dysfunction and disconnection, what happens is we actually flourish into a new level. And a lot of women who seek my mentorship at the moment are actually on that brink at the moment. And this is really what I'm seeing. Before, I was trying to help, like be more like the rescuer of these women. And what I'm seeing now with the years that have gone by is that these women now see that they don't need to be rescued. They simply need somebody to reflect back to them what it means to be in an empowered leadership position without creating this hierarchical institution within their business, where we actually can sit on the same table and have a straight, face-to-face conversation about certain topics, and we can grow and rise together. And so, this is big. Like, let's just all take a deep breath in here. Like, this is huge. This is so big, right? Because when we can lead ourselves into a collective consciousness, when we can weave that collective consciousness, where we can be safe and held in a hierarchical, like non-hierarchical, so like an equilibrium of business where the client and the mentor, the teacher and the student, the seller and the buyer can be on the same level and actually have a very open, transparent, and equal exchange. This creates so much intimacy, and it creates so much authentic connection. It creates so much love. It creates so much healing, right? And there is an aspect of us that is allowed to claim that higher power, that is allowed to claim being bold and being fully expressed. And when I'm saying being bold and fully expressed, it is not to try to please other people from a back door, right? It is actually to step to the forefront, to become the leader who leads by example, because she knows that this is what feels good in her heart. And she also dares to have uncomfortable conversations. She also dares to step into her own discomfortable zones, where she is kind of pushing the tide a little bit to the side of, well, I know there's power here. I know there is a connection for me to heal at the same time as I'm leading, these classes. And so this is where really now me coming back into the levels of pleasure and eroticism and teaching, about these hot topics is simply coming from a place of, well, I actually went into that, I went into that topic in a disempowered way with my good girl syndrome, where I was using it to somewhat, manipulate or try to get attention or try to get my way there, try to be seen, try to be acknowledged, try to be, witnessed as the expert. And where I'm just coming into this because I'm seeing the power that this has actually led me into in my life. And I'm teaching it from a place of embodied wisdom, right? This is what changed for me. This is what actually transformed something deeply in me. It was something that led me into a coherence in my own state of being, and I'm teaching it from that place. It's a very different dynamic. And I also want to mention another piece that, actually recently happened to me, where a beautiful woman in our community reached out to me because she loves my branding. And she wanted to know, how I create my branding, and she just had different questions about this. And I loved these questions. But what I also saw was that it would be so easy for anyone to project, their own, I need help, I need to be rescued. I don't know how to do this, so let me do it like you so that I can, like, it would be so easy. I don't think this woman did this, but it would be so easy for a woman to do this if she's playing in the good girl syndrome. Because if she would be playing in the good girl syndrome, and she would be playing in the toxic and wounded dynamic of the inner child of, I don't know how to do this, I don't know how to get attention, I don't know how to create sales, I don't know how to draw in clients, I don't know how to do all these things, so let me just do it this way, right? So that because it pleases me, let me do it this way in order to please other people. Well, do you see what she would have skipped? She would have actually skipped the most important piece of the puzzle, which is the embodiment of what it means to be, the woman who creates this incredible branding, but is not creating this incredible branding in order to get attention. Because the way that I create my branding designs now really comes from, I don't know where it even comes from. It just, it weaves through me. And a lot of times my master classes come through with a title, and then I weave my branding, or they come in. It's chaotic the way it comes in, right? It's purely from the feminine. And all I'm doing is I'm just allowing myself to play there. I'm allowing myself to be unraveled in the feminine. And it's such a beautiful conversation because, as I said before, it's very easy to skip the steps and try to figure it out and be a rat, in this game, and try to be the good girl and try to figure out all the steps that you have to do in order to please your clients, in order to, call in people, with a shiny marketing. But the truth is, the shiny marketing is the shiny marketing, but it won't have any impact whatsoever if you haven't actually done the energetic work. Because the reason why clients really come to me now is an energetic alignment, right? They come because of an embodiment. They can feel and sense that there's an earthquake behind here. There's something brewing. There's something pulling me in, and I don't know what it is, but I can feel it, right? And this is the exact way that I love to work with my clients, is when they come in, when they're intrigued, they're not sure why they are there, but they know deep in their core they're having this sacral response. If they're a generator, for example, or they're having this, this wisdom that comes through. If they're a projector, if they're a manifesting generator, they'll be like, oh, this is nice. Like, I wonder what I could create with this. And when people come to you from a place of in their power, it's the most triggering for the good girl syndrome, because the good girl syndrome will go into the fear of, I don't know how to handle this powerful woman. What am I going to do? Right? So she has to stretch herself into the capacity of holding somebody else's power. And these steps cannot be skipped. You cannot skip this, because if you're not willing to stretch yourself into your own discomfort and your own zones of, ooh, this is shadow, this is lurky, this is weird, this is strange, I don't know what to do with this is too chaotic. If you haven't done this kind of work, then it's going to be really difficult to actually hold the heat and staying in the heat of somebody in their power, right? And this is, I'm not going to be teaching, like tomorrow I won't be teaching about business, but I will definitely be teaching you the 3 sophistications on how to hold the heat and how not to collapse in front of the heat, right? So we can really lead ourselves. It's actually going to be a leadership class about sensuality, but it's going to be slightly different because I've never done this before. So I don't even know yet fully and completely what is going to come through, but I know those 3 sophistications are so crystal clear, and we will be preparing you to actually understand how to have this embodiment coherence, right? This coherence where this makes sense. I know what to do. This is my confidence. This is my zone of alignment, and I am drawing the best life to me from this place of connection. And that is the explosive magnetism, right? Because people will feel drawn to you, not because of your shiny marketing, but from the energetic alchemy that you've created that is pouring through as marketing, right? That is pouring through as copywriting, that is pouring through as beautiful designs, that is pouring through as your brand, that is, you can use these 3 steps for business. Although I'm not going to be teaching about business, you can use these 3 steps to lead yourself into your business with this sense of poise and power. And so, was there anything else I wanted to say about the good girl syndrome? Yeah, so I think I'm complete with this. It feels amazing to have this awareness now, right? Like a few years later, to see, oh my goodness, like back then I was playing in my good girl syndrome. I was still trying to pull in people from a place of, I need clients. What can I do in order to pull in clients? Whereas now is I'm like, I'm creating my best life. Like, this is such a masterpiece. I love creating, this platform. I love to pour into it. And it's becoming stickier and juicier and sweeter by, the time ticking by, because it's just getting better and better. And yes, and it feels amazing to come into the world from that place. It really does. It feels it feels very aligned. So let me know how this landed for you. I know this was a huge topic, but I will not silence myself, because I feel that these conversations are not being had online enough. There should be so much more to this conversation online. We need to have these straightforward conversations about, creating sticky marketing, creating sticky businesses, creating sticky brands and sticky connections, and people who come, to you over and over and keep buying from you over and over because they just love to be in your presence, right? And they're not coming to you because of something you're doing, or something that you're not doing, but they're coming to you because they actually genuinely love to be surrounded by you. And I'm so happy that I, learned whatever I needed to learn in order to purify this part of me, because my good girl would have run my business into the ground, and she would have burnt out way too early. She would have burnt the whole thing down. And I remember there was so many moments in my coaching career when I set this whole thing up that I just wanted to burn things to the ground. I just wanted to create a whole new page. I wanted to create a whole new everything. And it's actually because I was running away from my truth. I was running away from the truth of being authentic, of not having it all perfectly figured out, of not knowing and still keeping, trusting. Like, it's so easy to get drawn into the good girl syndrome because we've been programmed into it since young, We've been programmed into being the good girl, into conforming, into being good at school, and, not sticking out for the wrong reasons, and behaving and being nice and taking care of everybody and mothering everyone and overextending and overgiving and over-sacrificing ourselves. It is such a natural program, and it takes a lot of consciousness and a lot of maturity and discipline to simply just do the work of awareness. Like, doing the work of awareness is already 50%, which, is hopefully already helping you with this video to just become more astutely aware of what is actually happening in the background, right? That it's not your fault. It's just that you're now ready to stretch. You're now ready to move to your next level. You're now ready to call in, clients from a place of alignment. You're now ready, right? You've done it the way you've done the things, you've said the things, you've created the things that were coming from a place of, slight manipulation, a little bit of toxicity, a little bit of, a little bit of trying to, but not really quite getting it. And now you simply get to do it differently. You get to do it in a way that feels good. You get to do it in a new way. You get to do it in a way that is actually aligned for you. And the truth is, this is how we become the best leaders on the planet. This is how we heal the planet, right? It's by actually becoming very true with ourselves, with having difficult conversations with ourselves, and staying in the room, not leaving the room, not deserting the building, right? Actually staying there and holding presence, loving presence for our chaotic feminine, and bringing all these parts of us back home to ourselves, and then allowing those parts of us to be shown, to be displayed, to be seen, right? Like, the feminine in the way that it has been seen in the world has always been, in this somewhat, you know, pristinified and like perfectionized way, but it's robbing our stamina for life, right? How about we show up as our raw, authentic selves? How about we cry? How about we are angry? How about we show ourselves in all of our colors, right? And it doesn't mean that, you know, we have to go airing our dirty laundry to everybody all the time, but there has to be a level of leadership where you need to be able to lead yourself through your darkest moments, because your audience is waiting for that. Your audience is waiting to see how you're going to be leading yourself through your difficult moments. And if you're not showing that, then it's like you're cutting yourself off from the most beautiful relationships in the world. I mean, the relationships I have with my clients, like, I love them so much. It's unreal. And I love to be loved by them too, right? And especially love to be loved by them because of who I really be, not because of what I do or what I could create for them or what kinds of months of sales that we can do together. We get to do all of this, and we have the most beautiful, juicy connection, right? This is what's really important to me. And it's also a feminine quality. We care about our relationships. We care about being connected. We care about this belonging because it nurtures us deeply. It nurtures something very, very deep in our physical homeostasis. And it's important for us to respect that, you know, to respect the intelligence of the body, to respect the intelligence of our sensuality, of our actual human, right? And to bring that online too. Anyway, this is it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. This was Lizzie Butterfly, fluttering to you live from Greece at the moment. And I'm super excited about the Rampage Masterclass tomorrow. If you want to join, you're still welcome to. There will be a replay if you're somehow seeing this at another date. It's 33 euros. I will not change the price because it feels aligned. It feels easy. It feels juicy. It feels elevated. It feels amazing. It feels like pure Rampage. I love you so much. Thank you for tuning in. I will speak to you very soon. Mwah. Talk soon, my love.